One of my favorite things about thrifting is realizing that some of the best home decor pieces don't start out looking like much. Most of the projects I'm sharing today are things anyone can do. You don't need special tools, advanced DIY skills, or a big budget. Sometimes all it takes is looking at an ordinary piece a little differently, or combining two things in a way you might not have thought of before. So today I'm sharing a few of my latest finds, designer-inspired projects, and easy transformations that prove creating a high-end look doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Because at the end of the day, it's not about having a designer budget, it's about creating a home you love. Now grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's dive in. Sometimes the easiest projects come together before you even leave the thrift store. When I spotted this cut glass vase at Goodwill, it reminded me of the Love Shack fancy vases. The shape was already there, it just needed a base. And sitting on the very same shelf was this little tapered candlestick holder for 99 cents. So for less than $4, I brought both pieces home, gave them a good cleaning, and used a little E6000 to attach them together. I love projects like this because there's nothing complicated about them. It's simply taking two ordinary pieces and seeing how they can work together. And now all this vase needed was some flowers. I know everyone loves Trader Joe's for flowers, but can you believe this bunch of roses from Whole Foods was only $10.99? There were nearly 3 dozen blooms in this bundle. I've never seen roses quite like this before, with so many flowers on a stem. And once everything was styled, I think it turned out beautiful. Here's the Love Shack fancy version for $159, and here's mine for less than $4. This next project started with a broken floor lamp I found at the Goodwill bins for $2. Now, if you don't find a broken lamp like I did, don't worry. I see floor lamps at thrift stores all the time for $7, $10, even $15. So this is still a project that's very doable. What caught my attention was the shape of the post. It reminded me of those outdoor lantern posts you see for patios and gardens, and I thought it would be perfect base for a solar lantern. Since the lamp was broken, the first thing I needed to do was to remove all of the wiring and figure out how to reconnect the post. I started with Gorilla Glue epoxy, which has always worked well for me, but for some reason it wasn't setting up this time. Looking back, I think the humidity may have been part of the problem. So I switched to JB Weld and it wasn't setting up either, so I brought everything inside and that did the trick. Once the post was secure, I gave it a coat of black spray paint to make sure everything looked like one solid piece. To help protect the wood and the base from the weather, I also added a few coats of outdoor sealer. For the lantern, I used a Dollar Tree solar lantern that cost $6. Since the battery compartment and on-off switch are on the bottom, I didn't want to permanently attach it. Instead, I used a heavy-duty Velcro and some space tape so it can easily be removed whenever I need access. My original plan was to place the entire post inside a large planter and surround it with flowers, something like this. I found a beautiful concrete planter at Goodwill, but it was more than I wanted to spend. So I'm keeping my eyes open for the right one, and when I find it, I'll be sure to share the finished version with you. So the post was $2 and the lantern was $6. Most of the other supplies I already had on hand. For now, I love how it looks in the corner of my patio, and it's super budget friendly for $8. I think it was well worth the effort. I've seen similar solar lantern posts selling anywhere from around $80 to over $150. So this little table has been sitting in my stash for about a year. I found it at a thrift store for half price and paid around $7 for it. I think it was originally a plant stand, but I knew it had potential. The problem was it needed a sturdier top. So it sat and waited for me to find the right piece. Then recently I came across this Martini table from Atelier selling for $195, which is actually sold out. What caught my eye wasn't the price though, it was the design. The base had a very similar shape to the stand sitting in my craft room, and I knew all I needed was a top to bring my piece to life. And then the thrifting gods decided to help me out. On a trip to Goodwill, I found this metal tray that could be the top for just $1.99. Not only was the color almost a perfect match, but it even had the same braid detail around the edge. It felt like the two pieces were meant to be together. All it needed was a little E6000, a few weights, while everything dried, and the table was complete. And just like that, it was ready for an espresso martini. Lately, I've been seeing these floating display easels everywhere, and I love the look of them. Instead of leaning art against a wall, they hold it upright and almost making the art feel sculptural. But you don't have to use it for art. You could also use it for personal photos too. Now, Pottery Barn has a beautiful version of this type of easel, but before spending $129, I wanted to see if I could make one for myself. So I decided to start with a Dollar Tree easel for $1.25 and use it as the foundation. For the base, I pulled a few pieces of scrap wood from my stash, although you could easily use Dollar Tree wood pieces, paint sticks, or even leftover wood from another project. But always check Home Depot's trash cans in their lumber department. You might find a freebie there too. So I just started playing around with the pieces and using the canvas I will be displaying to measure where they should go. Once I decided on the layout, I drilled a few pilot holes and started assembling, always referring back to my inspiration image. Now, my version isn't designed to securely hold a heavy frame artwork like the Pottery Barn one. I really just wanted a unique way to display a small canvas, so for my purposes, this worked perfectly. Then I wanted to add the little detail on top. I played around with a few different pieces from my craft stash and ended up using this wooden disc because it reminded me of the detail on the inspiration piece. Once everything was assembled, I stained the wood using Waverly Dark Wax to help it blend in with the other wood tones around my home. While that was drying, I turned my attention to the canvas. This little Dollar Tree print reminded me of the moody still life paintings I've seen from Atelier. Their versions can sell for hundreds of dollars, but this little 8x8 canvas cost me $1.25. To get it more of an oil painting look, I'm using the Mod Podge technique I've shared before. I originally saw this technique on Instagram a few years ago, but I don't know who the original creator was. Idea is to mimic the brush strokes you would see in a painted canvas by applying the Mod Podge in different directions and building up texture across the surface. Then once it was dry, I used a little space tape to secure the canvas to the easel. It's amazing what a simple display easel can do. Instead of feeling like a little Dollar Tree canvas, it now feels like a decorative piece all on its own. A while back, I picked up these wooden candlesticks from Goodwill. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do with them, but I loved how substantial they were, so they came home with me. Then recently, I was browsing Atelier and spotted their turned wood candlesticks selling anywhere from $95 to $135 each, and they were sold out. Mine aren't exactly the same, but they definitely have a similar feel. Since it's summer, I decided to give them a new purpose. I wanted to create planters that would add a little color to the patio. For the planter itself, I'm using Dollar Tree containers, and because the candlesticks already had a nail on top, it made attaching everything pretty easy. I did add a screw to each one for a little extra security, but I didn't permanently attach the pieces because I may want to repurpose them down the road. And for now, I'm keeping everything white. Who knows, maybe one day I'll strip the paint and give them a more natural, primitive wood look like the Atelier versions. It's always nice to have options. And next came the fun part. After a trip to Home Depot's garden center, I came home with a few pink flowers. I specifically look for varieties that are known to be fairly hardy because, let's be honest, my gardening skills are still a work in progress. At least these should survive for a few months. And look how pretty they turned out. I love the height the candle adds, and because they're lightweight, I can easily move them around the patio depending on where I want a pop of color or how much sun they're getting. And then sometimes you just get lucky. I couldn't believe it when I stumbled across this primitive riser at Goodwill for $2.99. It reminds me so much of the similar ones from Atelier that sell for $45. What I love about this piece is that it didn't need a makeover. It just needed a good cleaning and a little oil to bring the wood back to life. After styling it with a candle and a cloche, it became the perfect finishing touch for this corner. And I think that's a good reminder that not every thrifted find needs to be painted, glued, or transformed. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply appreciate the piece for what it already is. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Saturday.